This guy is not very trustworthy, I would say, because he claims to be the promised Messiah who is gonna fight Dajjal. Ahmadiyya, which is a sect which was founded by Mirza Ghulam Ahmed. This guy is not very trustworthy, I would say, because he claims to be the promised Messiah who is gonna fight Dajjal. There's certain requirements that the Messiah would have to fulfill in order to be identified as the Messiah, and he claims in his book that he fulfills all of them. His book is called Hakikatul Wahi, the philosophy of a divine revelation. And at some point, he also claimed to be the caliph of the Muslim world. That is so funny. But by doing this, he upset Christians from all over India, perhaps even all over the world, because I can imagine that even the British Christians wouldn't be happy with him, to basically state that their story about Jesus, alayhi salam, is not true. And there is something really disturbing about the sect that he founded, because it's called Ahmadiyya, and the Ahmadiyya people, they make up for 10 million of Muslims. We don't actually accept them as Muslims, but I actually suspect that they are being counted as Muslims. And that is not a big part of Islam, though. It's only 0.5%, so it doesn't really matter. But in a way, it does matter, because 10 million is a lot. And on their website, Al-Hakam, you can also read more about all these claims that they're making about Jesus being buried in Kashmir, which in a way solidifies the claims of the Jewish media as well, that the Jews were there for thousands of years, right? Because when did Jesus Christ die? 2,000 years ago, something around that, right? And he claims also that Jewish people have been in Kashmir for thousands of years. You have to understand, this guy claims to be a Messiah, a prophet in Islam, and he is someone who also claims that Jews have been in Kashmir for thousands of years. In his book Hidden Truth, he proclaimed that the grave of Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, is in Srinagar in Kashmir, and they call it Yus Asaf. And he says, without a shadow of a doubt, the grave of Isa alayhi salam is in Kashmir. That makes him a very suspicious person, and you should be suspicious, because there are so many different ways in which his sect can be connected to Judaism. I'm going to go through them because I think it's relevant why we should know that. Okay. So there's several reasons why I think Ahmadiyya, which is not a Muslim sect, but they claim to be a Muslim sect, and they claim to also have produced the Messiah. The founders claimed to be the Messiah. There's many reasons why I think they are connected to Judaism, because when Ahmadiyya came into existence, there was actually a British Jewish prime minister, and there are reports even by this movement themselves that they were getting money from the British government. The founder was super loyal to the British government. In his own books, he also admits that he's super loyal to the government, and the government at the time was being run by a Jewish man. His name was Benjamin Disraeli, and he ruled until 1881 for 6 years. And so the thing is, when the first books of the founder of Ahmadiyya came out, that was actually when this guy, the Jewish prime minister, was also ruling. And the thing is, the founder of Ahmadiyya was really unsuccessful. So he couldn't have had that type of money himself. And that's why people are saying probably he was being funded directly by the government, but also he did admit receiving funds, like a retirement from the government. But that was because this traitor actually fought together with the Brits against the resistance in India. So he actually fought against his own brothers and sisters, and he was loyal to the colonizer. Okay, anyways, that is number one. Then number two is obviously the Ahmadiyya claims that Isa alayhi salam is buried in Srinagar, Kashmir. And that's a clear indication that he supports the Jewish narrative that the Jews are originally from Kashmir as well, because they've been there for thousands of years. And they've been there, that's what they claim, before Islam. So that's also very concerning. Then I also want to mention that the current headquarters of Ahmadiyya is in Israel. And I think that's so suspicious. Like, I cannot mention anything more suspicious than the fact that the headquarters of the Middle Eastern Ahmadiyya section is in Israel. They don't want to talk about this, obviously, but there's been a visit by the Tanzanian ambassador of Israel, and he published that this is the official headquarters of Ahmadiyya. And another thing that's actually very in favor of Jewish colonizers, but also Israel, is that Ahmadiyya advocates against jihad. So if you're being occupied or colonized by Jewish people, you should not fight them. That's what the founder of Ahmadiyya and the Ahmadiyya movement is about. Like, you just have to accept colonization, you have to accept occupation, which was very beneficial to the British government, but also would be very beneficial to Israel, right? Another thing is that he's very famous for criticizing Christianity a lot, but also Islam. So when it comes to Islam, he's really against the idea of jihad, but when it comes to Christianity, he claims that Christianity is like super corrupted, which is very like Jewish to say, obviously, because like Jews obviously believe that Christianity added a lot of things. They added the prophet Isa alayhi salam, and they believe that, you know, everything that happened in history related to Christianity was made up. And so this guy was like rebelling against Christians as well, and he upset a lot of Christians because of that. And the thing is, they're also heavily present in Kashmir. By heavily present, I mean, like, if you believe like a very important prophet of yours is buried there, like that's a really important place to you. And so it is a very sacred place to the Ahmadiyyas, Kashmir. And Kashmir happens to be also very important for Israelis because they're making a lot of money off of that place, right? Because of all the contracts, but they're also claiming heritage there. There's just a lot of connections. It seems like wherever the Ahmadiyyas are, that's also where the Jews are. Like, they seem to be rolling together a little bit. And then finally, the Ahmadiyya are supported by all the colonizers. So for example, in the Netherlands, the first mosque that was founded was Ahmadiyya. Then you have the biggest mosque in the UK, Ahmadiyya. The first mosque in Germany, outside of the one that was built for prisoners of war who they were trying to radicalize, the German government, was also Ahmadiyya. So those are some of the reasons why I believe that they have a connection to each other. But how did it even come about? Like, how did these Ahmadiyyas actually come into existence? Like, where did that happen? And so it's no surprise that at the time of its birth, the birth of the Ahmadiyyas, the Brits were heavily present in India because that's where this Ahmadiyya movement comes from. It comes from India. And the founder, he was so obsessed with the British government. Like, he even wrote this book. It's called A Gift for the Queen, where he pledges his loyalty to the Queen. It's such a disgusting book because I don't want to say something rude, but like sucking up to her. And it's just distasteful. Okay. Why did the Brits even allow this to happen? You might wonder, because they were pretty anti-Islam during the time of occupation of India. Well, let me just walk you through some facts, okay? Because Britain has been obsessed with Muslims since forever. You really need to know that they've been obsessed with Muslims, okay? I'm going to tell you exactly how we know that. The Brits believed that Muslims were very dangerous to the occupation and the colonizer, which was the British power in India. They noticed that Muslims don't accept colonizers, and they had an inclination, you could say, they had a whim, you could say, that it had to do with Islam. And that the reason why Muslims are not being dominated. Colonizers cannot dominate Muslims because of their religion. That's the win they got, okay? And so in 1871, the British government actually ordered a research, and it was to study whether the Muslims' religion was withholding them from being subjects to their master, the colonizer. And so this is called the Report of Hunter, and it was called Indian Muslims, Re-Examination of its Background. And so according to the book about this author, Sir William Hunter, he actually admits that the true purpose of the book was to find out whether Muslims were bound by their religion to rebel against the Queen. They were like, it seems like these Muslims, they don't want to become our loyal subjects. What could it be? That's what they were wondering. What could it be? And then they had a win. They were like, maybe it is their Islam. Maybe it is the fact that they are strong Muslims. Okay. Well, guess what they found out? That it was indeed Islam, which made it impossible for Muslims to be like, yes, my master. And so in this book, they said that, the Quran is based upon the conception that Muslims don't get conquered. They are the ones conquering others. MashaAllah. And that's also the reason why they realized, they could never colonize in peace. And this book is still available. You can order it. It's being published by Cambridge Press. And I just want you to know something important, because there's been a report published online. I'll also make sure to show it. And they say that this guy, Hunter, who made this report, he is the reason why we had separatism in India. They said, Hunter has been regarded as the inventor of Muslim separatism and has been linked with a deliberate official policy of divide and rule. So you can understand, we're looking back now. Now all these researchers are saying Hunter is the guy who got the order to find out how can we divide and rule these Muslims. Muslims in India, making sure they don't want to have anything to do with their peers there, but also later on the Muslims in Pakistan who might not want to have anything to do with Indian Muslims and vice versa. And so I just want all Muslims in India and Pakistan to realize this. When you are rebelling against your fellow Muslims, you're first of all disregarding, the command of Allah that we are supposed to behave as a brotherhood. But next to that, you are actually subjecting yourself to the rule of the colonizer who literally wants to divide and rule us. Think about that. Think about that. All of you Muslims who ever talk badly about other Muslims, and most of it is based on propaganda created by non-Muslims. Let me just tell you that you are literally obeying your colonizer, your master in doing that. Okay. So